All right, if you've been looking at my Instagram page, you'll notice that I've been making a comparison to this knife pretty frequently here. That comparison, just to go ahead and roll it in, is the comparison of the Spyderco Shaman to the Strider SnG. And the reason why I have two different knives here is because this is the one that I used on my Instagram channel. So that's going to be the one that people have seen the comparisons of directly. However, this is a 3/4 ground blade. This is a full flat ground blade. Now, in no way am I saying that these knives are of the same design. What I'm saying is I feel as though when I picked this knife up, something about this knife just felt different to me, but it felt familiar. And if you know anything about me and the knives that I prefer, I'm a Strider guy. So that is exactly what I was feeling when I picked this knife up. When I picked this knife up, just that heavy blade stock, just that thwack when you open it up, the detent, that snap close, the weight, the overall just general feel of this knife, I felt like this was Strider-esque, if you will. So I've also, if you've been following my Instagram page, I've been kind of joking around and saying that I affectionately call this knife my Striderco. You know, Spyderco, Strider, Striderco. So this by no means is going to be an exhaustive video, but I thought it was an interesting comparison, and I felt like you all would think it was an interesting comparison as well. I'll go ahead and throw one thing out up front. The knife here is a $150 knife all day long. This knife here is a $420 knife or so. This knife here, this is a different edition knife. You can't even buy this anymore, but we'll call this the same thing. We'll call this a $420 knife. Now, the first thing you'll say is, well, if I could buy this knife for $150 and you're telling me it reminds you a lot of these two knives, which are $420, why would I spend the extra money? I could buy two of these knives and still pocket over $100. Well, with that being said, these two knives here have a no questions asked. As long as you don't modify the knife, if you break it, you send it back to Strider, $25. They fix your blade. If you've got lock rock, if it's a blade issue or a titanium issue, they're going to replace the titanium slab. They're just going to generally take care of your knife without any of the usual warranty gymnastics. And if you've been keeping up with Spyderco, and this is not a Spyderco versus Strider video, but I think this is back to another video, what are we really paying for? This is a $150 knife versus a $420 knife. What am I getting when I buy this $400 knife, and what am I getting when I buy this $150 knife? If you've been keeping up with Spyderco, you know that they've had some slight policy changes or adjustments or rewording of their policy, the Loctite issue, so on and so forth. And also, if you read the warranty of both of these companies, you'll see that basically Spyderco says, you know, take it apart, but if we think you broke it because you took it apart, we're basically not going to warranty the knife. Now, I know a lot of people will say, hey, I've sent a knife in and they've warranted it just fine, even though I took it apart and I broke it. That's fine, and companies will usually work with you. However, that's not a guarantee. The way the warranty is written on paper, if you tear this knife down and there's any kind of issue that they deem you responsible for, they're not going to warranty the knife the way the policy is written. Now, they may warranty the knife because, you know, it's not an expensive part, or that's what they put out in print, but they're going to warranty you anyway. I don't go based off of, you know, what might happen. I go based off of what is written. When you look at this warranty is pretty clear cut. It's just a few sentences long. Don't modify the knife. If you break it, send it in, we'll fix it. Simple as that. Send $25. So that's the first major thing as to why this is a $150 knife and this is a $400 knife. Either one you want to pick up is a $400 knife. And why I feel as though there's a price difference between the two. With that being said, this knife here, we'll go ahead and we'll try to do some comparisons as far as overall size and shape. So you can see here, let's close them up. You can see here, and I'm gonna try to use this knife as much as possible when I don't have to do a blade comparison, because I want you to be able to see just a regular production model. So you can see that these knives are roughly, and I'm gonna try to use this to butt the bottoms up. These knives are roughly the same length. The Spyderco Shaman is slightly longer. The Shaman is also slightly thicker, and I believe you can see that there. The Spyderco Shaman is slightly thicker than the Spyderco SnG. As far as blade stock is concerned, full flat ground, high saber. You can see that grind goes all the way up to about right here. I hope you can see that. And you can see that this also has a very high flat grind, saber grind. And if you look at the blade stocks, I think that they are also very comparable. And I'll fold the knives down so you can see the two. You can see here, let's see. You can see here that, and I'm not using any calipers or anything like that, because you can look up specs if you want to look up specs, but those blade stocks are pretty close to one another. I don't know that in the real world you're going to be able to tell a difference in use of one of these and the other one. You can see here that the tips of the knives, again, full flat ground to full flat ground, are very, let's see, are very similar. They're very similar on the two knives. Spyderco on the left, Strider on the right. You can see that if we are overlaying these knives, and I might even change the angle on this. If we put this choil to choil, let's do it this way. If we put this choil to choil, you'll see that that's not a good angle. Hold on, give me 1 second. Let me raise this camera up some. All right. If you overlay these two knives and you place them choil to choil, you can see that the Shaman has, the Shaman has a longer and a wider blade. If you overlay these cutting edge to cutting edge, you can see that the, you can see that the Shaman also has a longer cutting edge. Now, one other advantage that I feel as though the Shaman has over the Spyderco, and this has been a recent discussion in the Spyderco world, why isn't there a sharpening choil? That is one of the complaints that I have, or one of the issues I run into with my SNGs and my SMFs. This sharpening choil, it's great for when you're wanting to sharpen all the way down to the edge, but I find that if I'm making a long slicing cut, like cutting cardboard, that choil sometimes gets hung up and it causes problems. This here, you're not going to have that issue because there isn't a sharpening choil. However, when you go to sharpen, you can see they didn't even sharpen it all the way to the end. So the other thing that's been said is, well, I can always add a sharpening choil. However, I cannot take a sharpening choil away. So that's your call. One of the other concerns that I have with this knife is this swell here. It hits my finger, my index finger, right on top of that, and I always choke up. And you'll see that when I grab my Strider, I always choke up. It's sometimes it's not comfortable, sometimes it is comfortable. It kind of just depends. There's no issue with the clip. The jimping, I like this jimping. It's not overly aggressive, but it really locks your finger in. The jimping here, I can feel it, but I don't know that it's all that effective. The taper to the handle here, I would prefer it if it was probably straighter and it had the handle had the curve at the back of the spine like this, the back of the handle like that. But overall, I think this knife is okay. This knife here, I find that with the flare at the end, with the straightness here, and with this, my finger can fit here, with this choil, finger choil if you want to call it that, and my finger can fit right here. This one is much more comfortable in my hand than the Spyderco Shaman. So I'll let you make your own decision on that. But these two knives here are very, very similar, a lot more similar than I thought initially. This knife does have a little bit more blade length. The handles are a little bit different. The handle on the Strider is a little bit longer. There's a sharpening choil here, which sometimes gets hung up. There is no sharpening choil here. Both of these knives deploy using some type of thumb hole. The lock, the compression lock, is a little bit easier, I feel, to work. You can just kind of fling it open and fling it closed, or fling it open and fling it closed, or middle finger flick it and fling it closed. Now, because there is that little bit of the blade tang that pops up by this compression lock, when you go to close it, your finger sometimes bumps. Let's see if I can get that in focus. Your finger will sometimes bump that edge, and it'll knock the blade back out, so it won't always tighten up. This knife here, you can, and these don't drop free, but it's going to be a different experience. This knife is going to be a little bit slower. You're going to have to disengage it with your thumb, close it like that. You can't really just fling it down, even if it was free flowing. I don't think that you're going to want to have your thumb in the way of that blade and fling it down like that. So this one is more of a traditional open and close method. Overall, like I said, I don't necessarily believe these are direct competitors, but I do think that if someone was interested in a knife like this, a heavy duty knife, but they may not want to buy it because of the price. Again, like I said, I think a lot of that price is going towards your warranty, but I digress. I think that this is going to be something that may appeal to that buyer. This knife it's about the same in pocket if you look at it closed. The Shaman sticks out a little bit more, but at the end of the day, you're not really going to necessarily feel that in your pocket. So the only thing, like I said, is this grip. I don't feel as though, because this is the only option. Striders come in several different options, but then you're talking about different prices. But I don't necessarily know that this smooth contour G10 was the best option if I was going for a hard use folder. And like I said, you can hear my finger just slip all over this G10. So if my hands were wet, or if they were muddy, or whatever, if I'm outside using this knife like a hard use knife should be used, I don't know that this is going to give me the best texture. But I thought that was an interesting comparison when I ran across, when I thought about what this knife really reminded me of, and then I went ahead and pulled out my Striders and I started just actually holding them next to one another and kind of giving them, a look over. I just thought that it was very interesting to see the comparisons between the SnG and the Spyderco Shaman. So as I said, I'm going to continue to use this one, and you'll probably see a few more videos. And I affectionately refer to this one as my Striderco. So I think this is just a great budget, hard use knife. Few issues with the ergonomics, few issues with the texturing, but overall, I think that if you get a good one, this is a winner. I appreciate you guys watching. Hope to catch you in the next video. Thank you.